I found the pregnancy test in my garage while 22 of Rebecca's family members prayed over our Thanksgiving meal inside, and I knew the baby wasn't mine. I need to back up. I need you to understand how I got there, standing in that garage on an October afternoon in Franklin, Tennessee, holding a piece of plastic that was about to end my marriage, my ministry, and everything I thought I knew about the woman I'd loved for 20 years. My name is David Morrison. I'm 45 years old. I'm an associate pastor at Grace Community Fellowship, 1,200 members, big enough to matter in our town, small enough that everyone knows everyone. I oversee adult ministries, marriage enrichment, if you can believe the irony of that. I'm a licensed therapist. People come to me when their marriages are failing. They sit in my office and cry and ask me how to save what's breaking. And I tell them about transparency, about truth, about how you can't build a life on lies. I had no idea I was living in one. It was harvest celebration weekend. Rebecca's whole family was in town. Her mother Miriam, her aunts, her cousins, 22 people total, all crowded into the parsonage we've lived in for 12 years. The church owns it. It's a nice colonial, 2 stories, attached garage, very Norman Rockwell, very pastor's family. We were cooking ham, green bean casserole, sweet potato pie, the works. Rebecca was leading everyone in prayer in the dining room. I could hear her voice drifting through the kitchen, out the side door, into the garage where I'd gone to grab extra folding chairs. We needed chairs. Always need more chairs when Rebecca's family comes. They multiply somehow. You think you've got enough seating, then 3 more cousins show up. I walked into that garage like I'd walked into it 1,000 times before, pulled the cord for the overhead light. It flickered on, that fluorescent buzz, that blue-white wash over everything, lawnmower in the corner, tool bench along the wall, Christmas decorations stacked in plastic bins, and in the back, behind the folding chairs, a storage bin I didn't remember putting there. It had tipped over. The lid was off. Things had spilled out onto the concrete floor. I stepped over my bike, moved around Rebecca's car. She'd pulled in an hour ago, parked at an angle like she always does, driver's side too close to the wall. Her jacket was hanging on a hook by the door. Navy blue, the one she wears to work at the church office. I reached for the folding chairs. That's when the pregnancy test fell out of her jacket pocket. I watched it fall in slow motion. That's how it felt anyway. Like the air had thickened. Like gravity had changed. The test tumbled, spun, landed face up on the concrete. Blue and white plastic. Digital screen still glowing faintly. Pregnant. 2 to 3 weeks. I stood there holding that test, and my first thought was, when did we decide on another baby? We have 2 kids already. Sarah's 21, leading worship at the church. Nathan's 18, away at college. We're past the baby years, way past. And then I saw the date on the pharmacy receipt still attached to the box. Last Thursday, 11:47 p.m., late, secretive. Rebecca going out after I'd gone to bed. And then I did the math. October. We haven't been intimate since April. 6 months, maybe longer. She's been tired. I've been busy. Church business meetings, counseling sessions, men's Bible study, marriage retreat planning. We kept saying we'd reconnect. We kept saying next week, next month. When things slow down, they never slow down. 6 months since we'd been together. And she's 8 weeks pregnant. I stood there holding that pregnancy test, doing math I never thought I'd have to do. The numbers don't lie, even when people do. I set the test down on the workbench. My hands were shaking. Actually shaking. I could see my fingers trembling like I'd had too much coffee, but I'd only had 1 cup that morning. This was something else. This was the floor dropping out. This was 20 years of marriage folding in on itself like a house of cards in a windstorm. The storage bin caught my eye, the one that had tipped over. It was labeled Youth Ministry Supplies in Rebecca's handwriting, purple marker. She always uses purple. Youth Ministry Supplies don't belong in my garage. They belong at the church in the youth building with Marcus Reed Our youth pastor, 38 years old, hired 20 months ago from out of state, recently divorced, dynamic speaker, plays guitar in the worship band. The kids love him. The parents trust him. I hired him. I trusted him. I walked over to the storage bin, looked inside, saw a book on top, thick leather, burgundy, worn at the corners. I picked it up. It was a Bible. Not just any Bible, Marcus's Bible. I'd recognize it anywhere. He carries it to every service, every youth event, every missions trip. His name is embossed on the cover in gold. Marcus Dean Reed. The Bible was heavy in my hands, that good, substantial weight of leather and paper and years of use. I opened it. The spine cracked, the pages rustled, and there in the margins of Song of Solomon, in pencil, my wife's name, Rebecca, with hearts drawn next to it, with dates. I've performed weddings with that Bible. I've watched him preach from it. I've seen him place it on the pulpit during youth devotionals, hold it up during altar calls, clutch it to his chest during prayer. And the whole time, my wife's name was hidden in the margins, like some kind of sick prayer. I flipped through more pages, found more notes, verses highlighted, passages about love underlined, and in the margins, over and over, Rebecca, my Rebecca, with intimate notes, with scripture twisted into something else entirely. Your lips are sweeter than wine, my love. That's what he'd written next to Song of Solomon 4:11, in my wife's voice, in her name. I'd been teaching a marriage enrichment series, 8 weeks on building intimacy. And Marcus had sat in the front row every session, taking notes, nodding along, carrying this Bible with my wife's name hidden inside like a secret he could pull out and smile at whenever he wanted. I set the Bible down next to the pregnancy test. 2 pieces of evidence, 2 clues to a puzzle I didn't know I was solving. What else was in that bin? I dug deeper, found a folder, opened it. Inside were hotel key cards rubber banded together. 6 of them. Different hotels, Hilton, Marriott, Holiday Inn, 2 boutique places downtown. Dates written in Rebecca's purple pen on the back of each card. I recognized those dates. April 16th. That was my men's retreat weekend. Rebecca said she was having a girls' night with her sister. June 8th. I was at a denominational conference in Memphis, 3 days. Rebecca said she was catching up on paperwork at home. July 22nd, Wednesday night, early dismissal at church for summer. I led a prayer service for 20 people. Rebecca said she had a migraine and stayed home. Every date I was gone. Every date she was supposed to be somewhere else. And there, tucked in with the hotel cards, was one with an envelope. The envelope had Youth Missions Retreat Weekend written on it, room 447, dated 6 months ago. I remembered that trip. Rebecca and Marcus both went as chaperones. It was a weekend at a camp 2 hours north, 40 teenagers, 4 adult leaders. Rebecca told me she roomed with Lisa, one of the mom volunteers. She came home Sunday night, exhausted, smiling, talking about how the kids had really connected with God that weekend. She'd shared a room with Marcus, room 447. While 40 teenagers slept in cabins down the hill, trusting their youth pastor and their pastor's wife to keep them safe. I found myself sitting on the garage floor. I don't remember deciding to sit. My legs just gave out. I was holding the hotel key, turning it over in my hands. Smooth plastic. The Marriott logo, room 447. Those numbers burned into my brain. Behind me, I could hear the family through the walls. Laughter. Someone was telling a story. Rebecca's Aunt Carol, probably. She always dominates conversations. I could hear dishes clattering, music playing, normal sounds, happy sounds, the sounds of a family gathering for a harvest celebration. And I was sitting in the garage doing archaeology on my marriage, digging up artifacts of betrayal. I put the hotel key down, reached into the bin again. This time I pulled out a journal, moleskin, black cover, the kind writers use, the kind that feels important. The title page said, Prayer Partnership Journal for Youth Ministry, Rebecca and Marcus. Prayer Partnership. That's what she'd called it. 6 months ago, she told me she and Marcus were going to pray together weekly for the youth group. I thought it was beautiful. Two spiritual leaders seeking God together for the kids. I opened the journal. The first entry was dated 14 months ago, August 12th. Lord, we come to you asking for wisdom as we serve these young people. We pray for purity in our hearts and minds. We pray against the desires we feel growing between us. We know this is wrong, but the feelings grow stronger. Father, help us resist temptation. Give us strength to honor our commitments. Next page, August 15th. Met at hotel this afternoon. Couldn't resist anymore. Prayed afterward for forgiveness. God, we know this isn't right, but it feels like you brought us together. How can something that feels this pure be wrong? I kept reading, page after page. 2 different handwritings, Rebecca's purple ink, Marcus's blue. Alternating entries, prayers that weren't really prayers. Confessions disguised as supplications. They were using prayer language to document an affair. Lord, give us wisdom about our future together. Father, give us strength to leave our current situations. God, we pray for the courage to follow where you're leading us. They weren't praying against the affair. They were praying for it. They just dressed it up in spiritual vocabulary, weaponized prayer language to justify what they were doing. 14 months. This had been going on for 14 months. While I counseled couples, while I led marriage retreats, while I preached about faithfulness and transparency and building your life on truth. My wife and the youth pastor I'd hired were filling a prayer journal with documentation of systematic adultery, calling it spiritual partnership. The journal paper was thick, cream-colored. It made a sound when I turned the pages, that soft rustling that good paper makes. Both of them had written in quality pens. The ink had bled through slightly on some pages where they'd pressed hard, passionate, urgent. The journal smelled like Rebecca's perfume, that expensive stuff she wears to church. The scent had soaked into the pages. I closed the journal, set it down with the other evidence: pregnancy test, Bible, hotel keys, prayer journal. What else? I reached into the bin one more time. At the very bottom, underneath old worship programs and youth event flyers, I found a phone. Not Rebecca's phone. I know her phone. Rose gold iPhone, cracked screen she's been meaning to fix. This was a flip phone. Cheap, gray plastic, cracked screen protector, a burner. I picked it up. Pressed the power button. It lit up. Low battery warning, but enough juice to see the wallpaper photo. 2 people embracing. You couldn't see their faces, just bodies pressed together, arms wrapped around each other. But I recognized Rebecca's watch, the silver one I gave her for our 15th anniversary, and I recognized Marcus's guitar calluses on the hand visible in the frame. The phone had 2 contacts saved: my heart and my soul. I opened the message history. 1,200 messages. 1,200. The most recent was from 3 days ago. Marcus to Rebecca. Can't wait to see you tomorrow. Same place. I'll bring the ultrasound. Rebecca to Marcus. I told him I have a counseling conference we'll have all afternoon. I love you. I'll bring the ultrasound. My hands started shaking again. I scrolled back through the messages. Found one from 3 weeks ago. Got the test. It's positive. I'm pregnant. It's yours. What do we do? Marcus. We'll figure it out together, my love. This baby is a gift. Maybe it's God's way of forcing us to finally leave and be together. I dropped the phone. Actually dropped it. It clattered on the concrete. The battery cover popped off. I reached back into the bin, pulled out an envelope. Inside was an ultrasound photo, 6-week scan, grainy black and white image, gestational sac visible in the center, and at the top, in pink pen in Rebecca's handwriting, MR and RM, Marcus Reed and Rebecca Morrison, with a little heart drawn between the initials. The ultrasound photo was cool in my hands, that waxy thermal paper. The image was ghostly, black and white, more shadow than substance, but real enough. A baby. 6 weeks along. Due date would be, I did the math, late May, maybe early June. If you've ever discovered something that changed everything you thought you knew about someone, just type changed in the comments. You're not alone in that moment when the floor drops away. I found one more thing at the bottom of the bin. A silver ring, small, tarnished. I picked it up, turned it toward the light. It was Rebecca's purity ring, the one she'd worn since she was 16. True love waits engraved on the inside. After we got married, she wore it on a chain around her neck. A symbol, she said, a reminder of the commitment we'd made. To God, to each other. I hadn't seen her wear it in how long? Months? A year? The ring was cool metal in my palm. The chain was broken, snapped, not unclasped, like she'd ripped it off in a moment of decision. The ring that symbolized waiting for true love was lying on the concrete floor of my garage. Discarded, forgotten, next to evidence of 14 months of adultery disguised as ministry partnership. I sat there on that cold concrete surrounded by artifacts of betrayal. Pregnancy test, Bible, hotel keys, prayer journal, burner phone, ultrasound, purity ring, 7 pieces of evidence, 7 answers to questions I'd never thought to ask. How long? 14 months. Where? Hotels, church offices, my missions trip, Wednesday nights during prayer service, whenever I was busy saving other people's marriages. Why? I'd read the journal. I knew why. Marcus made her feel alive, made her feel seen, made her feel like a worship leader instead of a church secretary, made her feel young and desired and spiritually on fire. I made her feel like she was married to her job. And maybe I was. Maybe I'd been so busy being Pastor David that I'd forgotten to be husband David. Maybe I'd been so focused on counseling other couples that I'd let my own marriage drift. Maybe this was my fault. No, this wasn't about me. This was about choice. About 14 months of choices. Every hotel room, every lie, every Wednesday night when she said she had a migraine, every missions trip, every time she looked at me over dinner and smiled and asked about my day while texting Marcus on a burner phone under the table. Choices. My phone buzzed in my pocket. I pulled it out. Nathan, my son. 18 years old, freshman at college, 3 hours away. I answered, "Hey, buddy." "Dad?" His voice sounded wrong, tight, scared. "Dad, I need to tell you something. I should have told you weeks ago. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry." My stomach dropped. "Nathan, what's wrong?" "It's Mom." He was crying. Nathan doesn't cry. He's 18, 6 feet tall, plays baseball, acts like nothing touches him, but he was crying. "Dad, 8 weeks ago, I heard her on the phone. I came home from school early. She was in the kitchen. She didn't know I was there, and she said, 'I love you too.' But you were standing right next to me in the living room, so it couldn't have been you she was talking to." 8 weeks, 2 months. He'd known for 2 months. "Nathan, I should have told you. I know I should have, but I didn't want to believe it. I thought maybe I heard wrong. Maybe she was talking to Sarah. Maybe it was nothing, but it wasn't nothing, was it? Dad, I'm so sorry. You deserve better than this. You deserve better than all of us." Hey, listen to me. I was crying now too, sitting on my garage floor surrounded by evidence of my wife's affair, crying with my son on the phone. "You're 18. You shouldn't have to be the one who tells me my marriage is falling apart. That's not your job. You understand? This isn't on you. None of this is on you." "What are you going to do?" That's when I found it. One more piece of evidence, tucked into the prayer journal. I'd missed it the first time. A worship set list, cream cardstock, church letterhead from 8 months ago. Marcus's handwriting at the bottom. Thank you for sharing your song with me last night. You're the worship leader of my heart. Yours eternally, M. With a little sketch. 2 hearts intertwined. I read it aloud to Nathan, heard him suck in his breath. "Dad." "I know." That was the weekend you were at the conference in Memphis. Remember? You called us from the hotel and said you missed us and you'd be home Sunday. I remember. She said she was home. She said she had a quiet weekend. She said, I know what she said. Silence on the other end. Then, what are you going to do? I looked at the evidence spread around me. 7 pieces, 7 artifacts, 7 wounds. I don't know yet, but Nathan, I love you, and this isn't your fault. You hear me? I hear you. I love you too, Dad. I hung up, sat there for another minute, maybe 2. Hard to track time when your world is ending. From inside the house, I heard Rebecca's voice. David, honey, where are you? We need those chairs. I looked at the folding chairs, stacked against the wall, right where I'd been heading when this all started. Behind them, the storage bin. Behind that, evidence of 14 months of systematic betrayal. The chairs. I'd walked past those folding chairs 1,000 times. Parent conferences, football banquets, youth events, worship services. Funny how we use the same chairs for every church function, but never really see them. The storage bin was right there, hidden behind them. I walked past it getting Christmas decorations, Easter supplies, never noticing what else was stored in my garage. The chairs in the garage, the chairs in the sanctuary. We fill them with people but forget to ask who's really there. I stood up, legs shaky, picked up Marcus's Bible, tucked it under my arm, couldn't leave it in the garage, couldn't let Rebecca know I'd found it yet. Not until I figured out what to do. I grabbed 3 folding chairs, unfolded them. They made that metallic scraping sound, cold metal, October chills still in them from sitting in the unheated garage. I walked to the side door, opened it. The warmth from the kitchen hit me. Smells of ham and sweet potatoes and pie, sounds of family. Rebecca's Aunt Carol telling another story. Someone laughing, dishes clattering. Normal. Everything looked normal. Rebecca was at the stove stirring something. She looked up when I walked in, smiled. There you are. What took you so... She saw the Bible under my arm. Her smile froze. Her eyes went wide. The wooden spoon in her hand stopped moving. She knew I'd found Marcus's Bible, which meant she knew the storage bin was in the garage, which meant she knew what else was in there. We stood there looking at each other across a kitchen full of her family. 22 people. Her mother, Miriam, at the table, folding napkins. Her aunts by the coffee maker. Her cousins in the living room, all of them oblivious. Rebecca's face went pale, milk white. The spoon slipped from her hand, clattered against the pot. David, Miriam looked up. Rebecca? You all right, honey? You look like you've seen a ghost. Rebecca couldn't stop staring at the Bible in my hands. That burgundy leather, Marcus's name in gold, evidence of 14 months visible in my grip. I'm fine, Mama. Her voice was barely a whisper. I think I forgot to... David, can you help me with something in the bedroom? Actually, I said, and my voice sounded strange even to my own ears. Flat, controlled, on the edge of something dangerous. Your mother asked me to say grace before we eat. Rebecca's eyes pleaded with me. Not here, not now, not in front of everyone. I set the folding chairs down, arranged them at the table. Everyone gathered, Miriam beaming, the aunts chattering, cousins finding seats. Sarah came in from the living room where she'd been showing someone her Instagram feed. 21 years old worship leader, 42,000 followers, built her whole brand on being the perfect pastor's daughter. Dad's going to pray, someone announced. They all joined hands, bowed heads, waited. I looked down at the table, at the food Rebecca had spent all morning preparing, at her family gathered and grateful, at my wife standing across from me with her head bowed and her hands trembling. I opened my mouth to pray, and my voice cracked. Father. I had to stop, had to breathe. Father, we thank you. Stop again. Everyone's heads were still bowed, but I could feel them sensing something was wrong. We thank you for family, for... I couldn't do it. I couldn't stand there holding Marcus's Bible and pray over a table full of people who had no idea their world was about to shatter. For the food before us and the love around us, I finished in a rush. Amen. Amen, everyone chorused. They lifted their heads, began passing dishes, laughing, eating. Rebecca and I locked eyes across that table full of her family, and we both knew everything had changed. The family left around 9 that night, hugs at the door, thank yous for the meal, Aunt Carol talking too long, as always, Miriam lingering on the porch, looking at Rebecca with something like concern in her eyes, or maybe suspicion. I couldn't tell anymore, couldn't read faces, couldn't trust what I saw. Sarah went upstairs to her room. Nathan was still at college. The house went quiet. Rebecca was in the kitchen, washing dishes. I could hear the water running, the clink of plates, normal sounds, domestic sounds, the soundtrack of a marriage that no longer existed. I was in the bedroom. I'd brought all the evidence up from the garage, laid it out on the bed, pregnancy test, Bible, hotel keys, prayer journal, burner phone, ultrasound, purity ring, worship set list, 8 pieces of my wife's affair, arranged like evidence at a crime scene, because that's what this was, a crime. Not a legal one maybe, but a moral one, a spiritual one, a violation of every vow we'd made. I sat on the edge of the bed, waited. 10 minutes later, Rebecca came upstairs. I heard her footsteps on the stairs, slow, hesitant. She knew what was coming. She opened the bedroom door, saw the evidence spread across the bed, froze. David, sit down. I can explain. Sit down. She sat in the chair by the window, the reading chair where she used to curl up with her Bible in the mornings. Back when I thought her spiritual life was genuine, back when I thought prayer journal meant prayer journal. I picked up the pregnancy test, held it up so she could see the screen, still showing pregnant, still showing 2 to 3 weeks, still showing the lie. We haven't been intimate since April, I said. My voice sounded flat, dead, like someone else was speaking through me. It's October. That's 6 months. You're 8 weeks pregnant. She opened her mouth, closed it, opened it again. David, The math doesn't work, Rebecca. The baby isn't mine. Tears started rolling down her face. Big, dramatic tears. The kind she uses when she's counseling someone, when she wants them to trust her, when she wants to seem vulnerable. It was a mistake, she whispered. It only happened a few times. I don't know how it got this far. I picked up the hotel key cards, rubber banded together. 6 of them. A few times? She looked at the keys, looked away. I picked up the prayer journal, moleskin, black, 14 months of documentation. This says you started in August, last year. That's 14 months, Rebecca. Not a few times. Not a mistake. 14 months of planning, of lying, of writing it all down in a journal you called prayer partnership. We were praying. You were documenting an affair. My voice rose. I couldn't help it. Couldn't stay flat anymore. You were using prayer language to justify adultery. Lord, give us wisdom about our future together. That's not prayer. That's planning your escape. She was crying harder now. You don't understand. You're never here. You're always at the church, always in meetings, always counseling other people's marriages while ours fell apart. So you slept with Marcus. He sees me, David. He actually sees me. Not the church secretary, not the pastor's wife. Me. He makes me feel alive. He makes me feel alive? I laughed, harsh, bitter. You feel alive when you're lying to your husband, when you're sneaking into hotels, when you're using the counseling office, the place where students cry to you about their problems, to have sex with the youth pastor? Her face went white. How did you... I picked up the burner phone, waved it. I read the messages, all 1,200 of them. Same place, I'll bring the ultrasound. You told me you had a counseling conference. You spent the afternoon with Marcus. David, please. I hired him, Rebecca. My voice broke. I interviewed him. I checked his references. I welcomed him to our church family. I invited him to our house for dinner. I trusted him with vulnerable teenagers, with broken families, with people who needed spiritual leadership. And the whole time, I had to stop, had to breathe. The whole time he was sleeping with my wife. It's not like that. Then what's it like? I stood up, started pacing, couldn't sit anymore, couldn't be still. Explain it to me. Explain how you went on a missions trip with 40 teenagers and shared a hotel room with Marcus. Explain how you wore your purity ring for 25 years and then ripped it off so you could... I couldn't finish. Couldn't say it out loud. She was shaking her head. It wasn't supposed to happen. We were just praying together, just trying to support the youth ministry, but we connected spiritually, emotionally, and then you chose him over me, over Sarah, over Nathan, over the congregation that trusts you. You chose 14 months of lies over 20 years of marriage. I didn't choose... You're pregnant with his baby. I was shouting now. Couldn't help it. You're carrying Marcus's child and you were going to let me think it was mine. What was the plan, Rebecca? Were you going to tell me eventually? Or were you just going to let me raise another man's baby? She stood up, angry now, defensive. You pushed me to this. You and your church and your meetings and your counseling sessions. I'm alone all the time, David. I eat dinner alone. I go to bed alone. I wake up alone. You're physically here, but you're never actually present. So yes, when someone finally paid attention to me, when someone finally made me feel like I mattered. So this is my fault. That's not what I'm saying. It sounds like that's exactly what you're saying. I work too much, so you have an affair. I focus on ministry, so you sleep with the youth pastor. I'm not emotionally available, so you get pregnant by another man. That's the logic? You don't understand what it's like. She was crying and shouting at the same time. I'm just the secretary, just the pastor's wife. Nobody sees me for me. But Marcus looks at me like I'm special, like I'm worthy of being pursued, like I'm the worship leader of his heart. The worship leader of his heart. I picked up the set list, read it aloud. That's what he wrote 8 months ago when I was at the denominational conference. When you told me you were staying home for a quiet weekend, you were with him. She didn't deny it, just stood there crying. I picked up Marcus's Bible, that burgundy leather, gold-edged pages, his name embossed on the cover, opened it to Song of Solomon, showed her the margins filled with her name. He carried this into the pulpit. He preached from this. He held it up during altar calls while your name was written inside like some kind of... I couldn't find the words. This is desecration, Rebecca. You took something holy and turned it into... A sound from the doorway. We both turned. Sarah was standing there, still in her pajamas, face pale, eyes wide. Mom? Her voice was tiny, broken. Mom, what is Dad talking about? Rebecca's face crumpled. Sarah, sweetie, go back to bed. This is between... What, baby? Sarah stepped into the room, looked at the evidence on the bed, at the pregnancy test, at the ultrasound photo. She picked up the ultrasound, read the inscription. MR and RM? What is that? Her voice stopped. Her hand started shaking. Marcus Reed? Silence. Mom. Sarah's voice was rising, getting louder, panicked. Mom, please tell me MR doesn't stand for Marcus Reed. Please tell me you don't mean Marcus. Our Marcus. The youth pastor Marcus. Rebecca was crying too hard to speak. Sarah turned to me. Dad, I'm sorry, sweetheart. No. Sarah backed away. No, that's not possible. Marcus he's our youth pastor. He's engaged to... No, wait, he's divorced, but he... She looked at her mother. How long? Sarah, how long, Mom? 14 months, I said quietly. Sarah stared at the ultrasound in her hands, at her mother's name written in pink pen, at the heart drawn between the initials. I post about our family every week, she whispered. 42,000 people follow me. I do Instagram stories about faith and family values, and I talk about you guys, about how you're my role models, about how you taught me what marriage should look like. She looked up at Rebecca, tears streaming. I built my brand on you, on this family, on the lie that we are a family, Rebecca said desperately. This doesn't change. You're pregnant by the youth pastor, Sarah screamed it. You're pregnant by a man who counsels teenagers about purity, who leads worship, who talks about following God's plan. And you counsel people, Mom. You sit in your office and tell women how to save their marriages. You lead women's Bible study. She stopped, looked at me. Did you know? I found out today, in the garage. Today? This was happening today? During the family dinner? While Grandma was here? While we were all... She looked at the bed, at all the evidence. How much of this is real? Sarah, honey, don't. Sarah held up her hand, stepped back. Don't call me honey, don't. I can't. She turned and ran down the hall, into her room. Door slammed. Rebecca moved to follow her. No, I said, let her go. She's my daughter. And she just found out her mother has been lying to everyone for over a year. She needs space. Rebecca sank back into the chair, buried her face in her hands, sobbed. I looked at her. This woman I'd loved for 20 years. This woman who'd stood beside me through seminary, through our first church, through Nathan's difficult birth, through my father's death, through 12 years of ministry here at Grace Fellowship. This stranger. Is it his? I asked. She looked up. What? The baby. Is it definitely Marcus's? Her face did something complicated. Guilt, shame, calculation. I don't know. We were together in April, you and I, that once, so it could be... Don't. I felt cold. Don't try to make me think there's a chance. We both know the timing. She didn't argue. I sat down on the bed, suddenly exhausted. I need to tell Pastor Charles. No. She stood up, panicked. David, no. Please. If you tell Charles, he'll have to... The church will what? Find out? The congregation will learn that their associate pastor's wife and their youth pastor have been having an affair, that the woman who counsels their daughters about purity is pregnant by a man who's supposed to be protecting their children. Please, David, think about Sarah. Think about your ministry. Think about... I am thinking about them. I stood up, faced her. I'm thinking about the next girl Marcus charms, the next woman who trusts him, the next family he destroys. I'm thinking about every parent who dropped their teenager off at youth group believing they were safe. I'm thinking about 40 students who went on that missions trip trusting their chaperones. They deserve to know the truth. You'll destroy everything. I looked at her, at the evidence spread between us, at 20 years of marriage reduced to objects on a bed. You already did, I said. The next morning, I called Pastor Charles Henderson. Charles had been my boss for 12 years, my mentor, my friend. He was 58, silver-haired, grandfatherly, the kind of pastor who remembered everyone's names, everyone's stories. He'd hired me, trusted me, given me freedom to build the marriage ministry. I was about to betray that trust. I sat in his office at 7 in the morning. Before the church secretary arrived, before the staff meeting, before anyone else came in, I brought the evidence, all of it. Charles sat behind his desk, big oak desk, papers stacked neatly, coffee mug that said "World's Best Pastor," a gift from the youth group 3 years ago. I wondered if Marcus had helped pick it out. David. Charles leaned forward. What's going on? You sounded upset on the phone. I set the prayer journal on his desk. Read this. He picked it up, opened it, started reading the first page. His face changed, went from concerned to confused to horrified in about 30 seconds. He kept reading, flipped through pages, read Marcus's entries, read Rebecca's, saw the prayers that weren't prayers, the justifications dressed in scripture. He closed the journal, set it down, looked at me with something like grief in his eyes. David, I set down the rest. One by one, pregnancy test, hotel keys, burner phone, ultrasound, Marcus's Bible. Charles picked up the Bible, opened it to Song of Solomon, saw Rebecca's name in the margins, closed it slowly. How long? He asked. 14 months. The journal documents it all. They called it a prayer partnership. Charles's jaw tightened. He picked up the journal again, read a section aloud. Lord, we pray against these desires, but they grow stronger. Next page. Met at hotel. Couldn't resist. Prayed afterward for forgiveness. He looked at me. David, they turned scripture into foreplay. This is beyond an affair. This is desecration. I know. The hotel keys, these dates. He looked at them. April 16th. That's when you were at the men's retreat. I remember because I covered your Tuesday counseling sessions. Rebecca said she was with her sister. July 22nd, early dismissal. You led the prayer service. She said she had a migraine. Charles picked up the hotel key with the envelope. Read the label. Youth Missions Retreat Weekend. David. They shared a room while 40 teenagers were down the hill. I approved that trip. I signed the budget forms. I trusted them to chaperone. Charles set the key down like it burned his fingers. He was quiet for a long moment. Then, the baby. Due in May, Marcus's. She sure? I didn't answer. Didn't need to. The timeline spoke for itself. Charles stood up, walked to the window, looked out at the parking lot. Morning sun was coming up. Golden October light. Beautiful day. Didn't match the conversation we were having. We have a moral turpitude clause, he said quietly. In all staff contracts, Marcus signed it when we hired him. Adultery, especially with another staff member's spouse, that's grounds for immediate termination. I know. Rebecca signed one too, as church secretary. I know. He turned back to me. This will destroy the church, David. We've got 1,200 members. Half of them have daughters in the youth group, parents who trusted Marcus with their kids. I know. And you, his voice broke, your marriage ministry, your counseling practice. When people find out, I know, Charles. I was so tired, so impossibly tired. But what's the alternative? Let Marcus keep working with teenagers. Let Rebecca keep counseling women about their marriages. Pretend this didn't happen. Of course not. But David, think about yourself, your reputation, your ministry. People will question how you didn't see this. They'll wonder if you neglected Rebecca. They'll blame me. I nodded. I've thought about that. I've thought about all of it. And you know what? It doesn't matter. Because those 40 kids on the missions trip, they matter more than my reputation. The next girl Marcus targets, she matters more than my career. Truth matters more than my comfort. Charles sat back down, heavily, like he'd aged 10 years in 10 minutes. I'll have to call an emergency elder board meeting. I know. Robert Walsh is the chairman. He's a retired attorney. He'll want to see all the evidence. It's yours. Take it. Marcus will have to be terminated. Rebecca, he stopped. She'll have to resign before it becomes official to protect her counseling license. I understand. And David? He looked at me with something like sorrow. You can't stay in marriage ministry. Not during this. Not with your own marriage. I know. I'll step down. We sat there in silence. The coffee in his world's best pastor mug had gone cold. The morning light kept getting brighter. Outside, I could hear cars pulling into the parking lot, staff arriving, worship team starting practice, normal Wednesday morning at Grace Community Fellowship, except nothing would be normal again. Robert Walsh called me that afternoon, retired attorney, elder board chairman, 62 years old, gray beard, sharp eyes. He'd been on staff hiring committees for 15 years. He'd interviewed Marcus, recommended him. David, he said on the phone, Charles told me, I'm so sorry. I don't have words. Thank you. I need to ask you something for the investigation, for our legal protection. Anything. Did you notice signs beforehand? Anything that suggested no? The word came out harsh, too harsh. I softened. No, I missed everything. I was too busy, too focused on other people, I stopped. I didn't see it, Robert. That's not your fault. Feels like it is. David, listen to me. You're a pastor. You're trained to trust people, to believe the best. They exploited that. They used spiritual language to hide what they were doing. That's not on you. I didn't argue, didn't agree. Just let him talk. I've pulled the building security logs, he said. Access records for the last 3 months. David, there are a lot of entries. Rebecca's keycard and Marcus's, after hours, weekends, always within minutes of each other. My stomach dropped. How many? 47 times. 47. 47 times they accessed the building when no one else was there, Robert continued. Stayed 1 to 3 hours each time. Wednesday, September 18th. That's on here. 7:47 p.m. September 18th. Wednesday night. I'd led a prayer service. 20 people. We'd sung hymns. I'd preached about faithfulness. I was leading worship, I whispered. That night, 200 people in the sanctuary. I know. I checked the calendar. David, Robert's voice got tight. There's hallway camera footage. I've got it on a USB drive. You need to see it. You need to know what we're dealing with before the elder board meeting. I don't want to see it. I know, but you need to, for your own protection, for the investigation. He came by my house an hour later. Temporary apartment, really. I'd moved out the night of the confrontation. 1 bedroom. No furniture except what Charles lent me. Sarah had stayed at the parsonage with Rebecca. I'd spent my first night sleeping on a borrowed air mattress. Robert handed me the USB drive, black sand disk, sticky label in blue pen, parking lot camera, July Ock. There's more footage than this, he said. But this is enough. It's irrefutable, David. Time-stamped, multiple cameras. I've watched 4 instances. I can't watch more. He stopped. I'm sorry you have to see this. He left. I plugged the USB drive into my laptop. The status light blinked red. Urgent. Angry. Clicked open. Found a folder. Files organized by date. I clicked on September 18th. Security camera footage, black and white. Parking lot view. Timestamp in the corner. Wednesday, September 18th, 7:47 p.m. The parking lot was mostly empty. Just a few cars. Mine near the front entrance, I recognized it. The white Honda I'd driven to church that night. A few others scattered around. And there, 2 cars parked side by side. Far corner of the lot. Marcus's silver sedan. Rebecca's white SUV. I watched the timestamp roll. 7:47 became 7:55. Became 8:15, became 8:45. The video jumped to interior hallway footage, different camera, same timestamp, 8:47 p.m., 2 figures walking down the hall. I recognized them even in black and white, even from behind. Rebecca's distinctive walk, Marcus's height. They stopped at the counseling office door. Marcus looked around, coast clear. Rebecca unlocked the door with her key card. The timestamp flickered in the corner. 8:47:23 p.m. They went inside. The camera couldn't see into the office, just the hallway, empty, quiet. I thought about that night. September 18th. I'd been leading worship in the sanctuary. 20 people singing "Great is Thy Faithfulness." I'd preached about God's unchanging love, about how we can trust Him even when everything around us changes. And 3 walls away, my wife was in the counseling office with the youth pastor. The hallway footage jumped forward. 10:51 p.m. The door opened. Marcus came out first, looked around. Rebecca followed. They embraced in the doorway, full embrace. His arms around her, her head on his chest. Then they separated, walked to opposite ends of the hall, left through different exits, careful, planned. 10:51 p.m. They'd been in there for 2 hours. While I'd been leading worship, preaching, praying with people after the service, locking up the sanctuary, while I'd been shepherding the flock, 2 of my sheep were devouring each other. I closed the laptop, sat there staring at nothing, 47 times. 47 times in 3 months. I did the math, more than 3 times per week. This wasn't occasional. This wasn't a moment of weakness. This was routine, systematic, scheduled. They had a system. They had a pattern. Wednesday nights during my prayer services, Sunday afternoons when I visited shut-ins, Tuesday mornings when I led staff meetings. My ministry gave them cover. My schedule gave them opportunities. My trust gave them freedom. If you were me, if you were David, would you expose everything publicly to protect future families? Type expose. Or would you handle it quietly through official channels to spare Sarah and the congregation? Type quiet. What would you do when both choices cost you everything? Whatever you choose, there's no easy answer. That's what makes it leadership. You pick the hard right over the easy wrong, and you live with the cost. I forwarded the USB drive footage to Robert, wrote a 2-line email, received. We'll be ready for elder board meeting. Thank you. Then I did something I hadn't done since finding out. I cried, not angry tears, not betrayed husband tears, just tired, so tired, exhausted down to my bones, exhausted by the weight of evidence, by the systematic nature of it, by 47 instances of betrayal happening in the building where I'd poured 12 years of my life. I cried for the marriage I'd thought I had, for the partner I'd thought I'd married, for the ministry I'd built that was about to collapse, for Sarah's Instagram brand built on a family that never existed, for Nathan carrying guilt for 8 weeks, for 40 teenagers who went on a missions trip trusting their chaperones, for 20 people who sang hymns while adultery happened 3 walls away, for 1,200 congregation members who were about to learn their spiritual leaders had been lying to them for 14 months. I cried until I had nothing left. Sunday morning came too fast. I had to preach. Had to. The elder board meeting wasn't until Monday. Official investigation wouldn't start until then. Until then, everything was supposed to be normal. Charles had asked me Friday afternoon, "Can you do it? Sunday service. I can take it if you need me to." I'll do it. Because what else could I say? I'm falling apart and I can't face the congregation. I can't stand behind the pulpit knowing what I know. I had to preach, had to maintain normalcy, had to pretend everything was fine for 72 more hours. The sermon was already written. I'd prepared it 3 weeks ago. Scheduled message series on marriage, 8 weeks on building intimacy. This Sunday's topic, marks of a godly marriage. The irony would have been funny if it wasn't destroying me. I stood in my office Sunday morning, put on my suit, navy blue, the one Rebecca said made me look pastoral, tied my tie, rehearsed the sermon in my head, checked the notes I'd written weeks ago back when I thought I knew anything about godly marriage. Charles knocked on my door at 9:45. Service started at 10. "You okay?" he asked. "No." "You can still back out." "No, I can't." He squeezed my shoulder. "You're stronger than you know." I wasn't strong. I was performing. There's a difference. At 9:55, I walked through the back hallway toward the sanctuary, heard the worship team warming up, piano, drums, guitar, Marcus's guitar. I stopped, couldn't breathe. Marcus was playing guitar, on stage, in front of 1,200 people. Like nothing had happened, like he hadn't spent 47 sessions in the counseling office with my wife, like he hadn't gotten her pregnant, like he wasn't carrying on with ministry as usual while planning his future with another man's wife. Charles appeared beside me. "I didn't know he was scheduled to play today. I can ask him to..." "No." I straightened my shoulders. "It's fine. It's all fine." It wasn't fine. I walked into the sanctuary, 1,200 seats, 1,200 faces, families, teenagers, elderly couples, single moms, young professionals, people I'd counseled, people I'd baptized, people I'd married, people who trusted me. Rebecca was in the front row. She always sat front row, church secretary, pastor's wife, model of faithfulness. She saw me, tried to smile. It looked painful. Sarah was beside her, wouldn't look at me, stared at her hands. I'd talked to her yesterday, tried to explain. She said, "Don't, Dad, just don't. I can't process this yet. I have 42,000 people asking why I haven't posted in 3 days. What am I supposed to tell them?" Nathan had wanted to drive home from college. I'd told him not to. "Stay there. Focus on school. This will blow over." It wouldn't blow over, but I'd said it anyway. The worship team started. Marcus on guitar. He had a good voice, strong. He led the first song. Cornerstone. Appropriate, I guess. Christ alone, cornerstone. I sat on the platform, prayed silently, tried to focus, couldn't, kept watching Marcus play, kept watching Rebecca in the front row, kept thinking about 47 times, about Wednesday nights, about counseling office couches, worship ended, announcements. Rebecca walked up to do them. It was her job. She smiled at the congregation, reminded them about the women's Bible study Tuesday night, about the youth fall retreat coming up in 3 weeks, about the community service project next Saturday. She was good at this, polished, professional. Nobody would guess she was 8 weeks pregnant with the youth pastor's baby. She sat back down, looked at me. I walked to the pulpit, opened my Bible. My sermon notes were there, printed neatly. Marks of a godly marriage. Ephesians 5:25. Husbands, love your wives, just as Christ loved the church. I opened my mouth. A godly marriage requires... My voice cracked, stopped. I tried again. A godly marriage requires... The word stuck. Transparency. I was supposed to say transparency, but I couldn't. Couldn't say it while standing behind a pulpit looking at 1,200 people who didn't know the truth, while Marcus sat 15 feet behind me holding his guitar, while Rebecca sat in front row smiling like everything was fine. The congregation leaned forward, concerned, sensing something wrong. I took a breath, tried again. A godly marriage requires truth. My voice was rough, strained. It requires... I had to stop, had to breathe. It requires transparency, truth. If you're lying to your spouse right now about anything, confess it, because lies destroy everything. I paused, took a drink of water. My hands were shaking. The water glass rattled against the rim. I've seen it destroy... My voice broke completely. I've seen it destroy the strongest marriages. I had to stop, had to look down at my notes. The words blurred. I couldn't read them. The congregation was silent, waiting. 1,200 people watching their associate pastor fall apart behind the pulpit. I forced myself to continue, read from my notes, talked about faithfulness, about covenant, about building your life on truth instead of comfortable lies. Every word felt like ash in my mouth. Behind me, Marcus played a soft transition on guitar, leading into the next worship song, like he was supporting the sermon, like he was part of the ministry team, like he was a man of God. I stood behind that pulpit preaching about godly marriage while the man who destroyed mine played guitar 15 feet behind me, while my wife sat in the front row pretending to listen, while my daughter stared at her hands, unable to look up, while 1,200 people had no idea their world was about to shatter. I spent 12 years teaching people how to forgive. I never imagined I'd have to learn what forgiveness doesn't mean. It doesn't mean enabling. It doesn't mean no consequences. It doesn't mean standing silent while sin masquerades as ministry. The sermon ended. I don't remember how. I gave an altar call. Some people came forward. I prayed with them. Routine, muscle memory. I'd done it 1,000 times. Then service was over. People filed out, shook my hand. Great sermon, Pastor David. Really spoke to my heart. Thank you for that word. If they only knew. Rebecca stayed after, waited until the sanctuary was mostly empty, approached me at the altar. David, not here. My voice was cold, flat. Not in the sanctuary. She flinched, walked away. Marcus packed up his guitar, waved at me. Good sermon, Pastor David, really powerful. I stared at him. This man who'd written my wife's name in his Bible, who'd gotten her pregnant, who'd spent 47 sessions in the counseling office violating every trust we'd placed in him. He had no idea I knew. He smiled, left. I stood there alone in the empty sanctuary. 1,200 seats, all empty now. Quiet, the chairs in the sanctuary. We fill them with people, but forget to ask who's really there. I sat down in the front pew, where Rebecca usually sat, put my head in my hands. How was I going to survive this? Monday afternoon, Rebecca's mother came to my apartment. Miriam Taylor, 68 years old. Rebecca's mother, silver hair, sharp eyes. She'd been at the harvest dinner. She'd sat at the table, folded napkins, laughed at Aunt Carol's stories. She'd known something was wrong. I could see it now, looking back. The way she'd watched Rebecca and me, the way her smile hadn't reached her eyes, the way she'd lingered on the porch, looking concerned. She knew. She knocked on my apartment door at 3 p.m. I answered. She stood there holding a manila envelope, thick, full. David. Her voice was quiet. Can I come in? I let her in, gestured to the one chair I had. Charles had lent me a folding chair, that's all. Miriam sat, set the envelope on the card table, also borrowed, looked at me with something like guilt in her eyes. I've known since April, she said. The words hit me like a punch. What? I found a pregnancy test in Rebecca's bathroom in April, 5 months ago. It was positive. I asked her about it. She said it was negative, that I'd read it wrong, but I hadn't. I knew. April, 5 months, while I was counseling couples, while I was leading marriage enrichment, You knew for 5 months. I suspected. She looked down at her hands. I didn't know about Marcus, not specifically, but I knew she was. I knew something was wrong. I started paying attention, started finding things, receipts, text messages on her phone. When she left it on the counter, she pushed the envelope toward me. I've been collecting evidence. I opened the envelope, pulled out the contents, hotel receipts, gas station receipts from towns 30 miles away, screenshots of text messages, a second pregnancy test, the one from April, more recent receipts, a pattern spanning 5 months. Why didn't you tell me? My voice sounded hollow. I thought... She stopped, breathed. I thought if I stayed quiet, it would pass. I thought it was a phase. She's always struggled with feeling overlooked, always wanted to be the center of attention. I thought if I just waited, she'd come to her senses. I thought, you thought wrong. I know. Tears in her eyes now. I know I did. David, I'm so sorry. You deserved to know. You deserved... She stopped, looked at me. There's something else, something you need to know about Rebecca. My stomach dropped. What? 10 years ago at our old church, before we moved here. Miriam's voice was barely a whisper. There was a worship leader, young man. Rebecca developed feelings. They would pray together late at night, in the church. It didn't become physical, I'm sure of that. But it was emotional. It was inappropriate. The pastor found out. Asked us to leave quietly. No scandal. Just move on. 10 years ago, you're saying she's done this before. It wasn't the same. It didn't go as far, but yes. The pattern, the spiritual language, the late night prayer sessions, the feeling of being special, being seen, it's the same pattern. I sat down heavily on the air mattress. It squeaked. Pathetic sound. She did this before, I repeated. 10 years ago. And you let me marry her without telling me. I thought she'd changed. I thought moving here, starting fresh, marrying you, I thought it fixed it. I thought, you thought wrong. Miriam was crying now. I know I did. David, I'm so sorry. I sat in the front row at your wedding. I watched you make vows. I watched you promise to love and cherish her. And I knew she had this pattern, this weakness, and I said nothing. Why are you telling me now? Because it's gone too far. Because she's pregnant. because Marcus isn't going to leave his life for her. I can see that. He's using her the same way she's using him. And when this all comes out, when the church finds out, when Sarah's life falls apart, she stopped. Someone needs to know the truth, all of it, not just this affair, but the pattern, the history, because Rebecca needs help, David, real help, not just consequences. She needs therapy. She needs to understand why she does this. I looked at the manila envelope. At 5 months of evidence Miriam had collected while staying silent, while watching me serve communion to my wife, while watching me preach, while watching our family gather for celebrations. She did this before, I said again, still couldn't process it. 10 years ago, you knew, and you let me walk into this blind. Yes, Miriam's voice broke. Yes, I did, and I will regret that for the rest of my life. But David, you need to know the full truth before the elder board meeting. You need to know this isn't just one mistake. This is a pattern. This is who she is when she doesn't get enough attention. This is what she does. I stood up, walked to the window, looked out at the parking lot, cars coming and going, people living normal lives, going to work, getting groceries, not having conversations about their mother-in-law enabling adultery for 5 months. The elder board meeting is tonight, I said, 7 p.m. I know. Are you going to tell them what you just told me? If you want me to, if you think it's relevant. Relevant? I laughed, harsh. Your daughter has been having an affair with our youth pastor for 14 months. She's pregnant with his baby. And you're telling me she's done this before, that this is a pattern, that you knew she was capable of this and said nothing. Yes, Miriam, that's relevant. She stood, walked to the door, stopped. David, for what it's worth, you're a good man. You're a good father. You're a good pastor. What Rebecca did, that's not about you. That's about her, about something broken in her, something I should have helped her fix 10 years ago. She left. I stood there holding the manila envelope. Evidence from my mother-in-law, a woman who'd watched me for 12 years and said nothing about her daughter's history, a woman who'd collected receipts for 5 months and stayed silent while I ate dinners with my wife, slept beside her, prayed with her, a woman who valued appearances over truth. Rebecca learned it somewhere, I guess. The elder board met at 7 p.m. Monday night. 7 elders, Robert Walsh in the chair, Charles Henderson at his right, 5 other men, deacons, businessmen, pillars of Grace Community Fellowship, men who'd served for years, men who'd hired Marcus, men who'd trusted us. I sat at the end of the conference table. The evidence was spread in front of them, all of it, pregnancy test, Bible, hotel keys, prayer journal, burner phone, ultrasound, purity ring, worship set list, security USB drive, Miriam's manila envelope, 14 months of systematic betrayal laid out on church conference room table under fluorescent lights. Robert had already reviewed everything, had watched the security footage, had read the prayer journal, had checked the timeline. Now he was walking the other elders through it, one piece at a time. He held up the Bible, Marcus's Bible. This is Marcus Reed's personal study Bible, the one he carries to every service. Open it to Song of Solomon. Elder James Thompson opened it. Read the margins. His face went gray. He passed it to the next man, then the next. Each one reading, each one reacting, shock, disgust, grief. 14 months, Robert said, documented in this prayer journal. They called it a prayer partnership, but read any page. It's documentation of adultery dressed in spiritual language. He opened the journal. Read aloud. August 12th. Lord, we pray against these desires, but they grow stronger. Next page, August 15th. Met at hotel. Couldn't resist anymore. Prayed afterward for forgiveness. Silence around the table. They weaponized prayer language. Robert continued. Used scripture to justify sin. Filled this journal with entries framing adultery as spiritual connection. He set down the journal, picked up the hotel keys. 6 hotels, multiple dates, all corresponding to times when Pastor David was at church events, conferences, or leading services. He held up the key with the envelope. This one is from the Youth Missions Retreat, room 447. Marcus Reed and Rebecca Morrison shared a hotel room while chaperoning 40 teenagers. Elder Thompson's hands were shaking. His daughter had been on that trip. She was 16. She'd trusted them. Robert picked up the USB drive. Building security logs. 47 instances in the last 3 months where Rebecca Morrison's keycard and Marcus Reed's keycard accessed the building within minutes of each other, after hours, weekends, Wednesday nights during prayer services. He plugged the drive into the laptop, projected the footage on the wall. We all watched in silence. Parking lot camera, Marcus's car, Rebecca's car, side by side, timestamp rolling, then hallway footage. September 18th, 8:47 p.m., 2 figures entering the counseling office, the office where students came for help, where vulnerable teenagers confided their struggles, the office where Marcus and Rebecca spent 2 hours while I led worship 3 walls away. Robert stopped the footage. 47 times, he repeated. This is not a mistake. This is not a moment of weakness. This is systematic, premeditated, routine. He picked up the pregnancy test. Rebecca Morrison is 8 weeks pregnant. She last had intimate relations with her husband 6 months ago. The timeline makes paternity clear. The baby is Marcus Reed's. Elder Thompson stood up, walked to the window, stared out at the parking lot. His shoulders were shaking. The other elders sat in silence. Charles spoke finally. Both Marcus and Rebecca signed moral turpitude clauses when they joined staff. Adultery, especially between staff members, especially involving a subordinate, constitutes grounds for immediate termination. Marcus is still probationary, Robert said. His permanent contract was up for vote next month. That makes termination legally clean. No severance, no appeal process. And Rebecca? Someone asked. She's been here 6 years, full time. But the moral turpitude clause applies. She can resign before we initiate termination proceedings. That protects her counseling license. She counseled students, Elder Thompson said without turning around. My daughter, other girls. She sat in that office and talked to them about purity, about making good choices, about honoring God with their bodies, while she was... He stopped, couldn't finish. Robert looked at me. David, I need to ask, for the record, did you have any knowledge of this relationship before finding the evidence in your garage? No. Did Rebecca or Marcus ever give you reason to suspect inappropriate conduct? No. My voice sounded dead. I trusted them both completely. Did you encourage or facilitate their partnership in youth ministry? I approved the prayer partnership 6 months ago. Rebecca said they wanted to pray together weekly for the youth group. I thought it was... I had to stop, breathe. I thought it was godly. I encouraged it. Robert nodded, made notes. For the record, Pastor David Morrison had no knowledge of the affair and bears no professional responsibility for what occurred. The investigation finds no evidence of negligence or enabling on his part. Elder Thompson turned around. What about the church? When this comes out, and it will come out, what do we tell 1,200 people? The truth, Charles said quietly. As much as we legally can. Marcus Reed's employment has been terminated for violation of conduct standards. Rebecca Morrison has resigned. We will not provide details, but we will be honest that trust was violated. People will speculate. Let them. We protect the church by being transparent within legal bounds. We protect future families by ensuring Marcus Reed cannot do this elsewhere. Robert looked around the table. I need a vote. Termination of Marcus Dean Reed, effective immediately, for violation of moral turpitude clause. All in favor? 7 hands went up. Mine stayed down. I wasn't voting, just watching. Unanimous, Robert said. Marcus Reed's employment at Grace Community Fellowship ends today. He will be notified tomorrow morning. He will not be permitted on church property except to collect personal belongings under supervision. And Rebecca Morrison? She has 48 hours to submit her resignation. If she refuses, we initiate termination proceedings. Charles looked at me. David, you understand this will become public. The congregation will ask questions. Your marriage, your ministry, I understand. You've done the right thing, Robert said. He stood, walked around the table, put his hand on my shoulder. Marcus Reed's employment ends today. Rebecca Morrison has 48 hours to resign. And David, you did the right thing. I hadn't cried through any of this. Not during the meeting, not during the evidence review, not during the vote. But when Robert said that, when he said I did the right thing, something broke. I put my head down on the conference table and cried. 7 elders sat with me. Nobody spoke, nobody left. They just sat there while I fell apart. Because doing the right thing doesn't mean it doesn't destroy you. 3 weeks went by in a blur. Marcus was terminated, didn't fight it, left town within a week, no forwarding address, no goodbye, just gone. Rebecca resigned, submitted a 1-sentence letter. I resigned my position as church secretary and counseling staff effective immediately, signed, dated, done. The church issued a statement, carefully worded, legally vetted. Due to conduct violations, Marcus Reed's employment has been terminated and Rebecca Morrison has resigned. We are committed to transparency and accountability in leadership. We ask for prayer as our church family processes this transition. That's all it said. But rumors filled in the gaps. People talked, people speculated. Within 48 hours, most of the congregation knew or thought they knew what had happened. Some people were supportive, brought me casseroles, sent cards, prayed for me during services. Others were angry, questioned why I hadn't seen it, wondered if I'd neglected Rebecca, suggested maybe if I'd been home more, been present more, paid attention more. Maybe they were right. I don't know. I stopped trying to figure out who was to blame. Sarah stopped posting on Instagram. For 3 weeks, her account went silent. 42,000 followers wondering where she went. Her comments filled up. Where are you? Are you okay? Is everything all right? I called her every day. She didn't answer most of the time. When she did, she sounded hollow. I'm fine, Dad, just processing. You don't have to post anything. You don't owe anyone. I built my whole brand on being the perfect pastor's daughter. What am I supposed to say? Sorry, guys. Turns out my family is a mess just like everyone else's. Thanks for the follows. Sarah, I need to go. She'd hang up. I'd stare at my phone. Wonder how to help her. Wonder how to fix any of this. Nathan came home from college that weekend, stayed with me in the apartment. We ate pizza, watched old movies, didn't talk about Rebecca, didn't talk about Marcus, just existed together. On Sunday night, he said, Dad, I'm proud of you. For what? For reporting it. You could have kept it quiet, handled it privately, saved Sarah's Instagram career, saved your reputation, saved everything. But you didn't. You chose what was right over what was easy. I didn't know what to say to that. Nathan kept going. I've been thinking about it a lot, about what I would have done, and I don't know if I would have been brave enough, but you were, and that matters. He went back to college the next morning. I hugged him longer than usual, 17 years old, too young to be processing his parents' marriage failure, too young to be proud of his father for exposing family sin, but there he was, growing up faster than he should have to. On Tuesday, 3 weeks after the elder board meeting, Sarah posted a video. I saw it because Nathan texted me, Dad, check Sarah's Instagram now. I opened the app, saw her profile, new post, a video, 6 minutes long. The thumbnail showed Sarah's face, no makeup, red eyes, tear-stained cheeks, raw. I clicked play. Sarah was sitting on her bed, holding her phone, looking directly at the camera. Hi, she said. Her voice was shaky. I know I've been gone for 3 weeks. I know a lot of you have been asking if I'm okay. The answer is no, I'm not okay, but I'm going to be. She took a breath. I've built this whole account on being the perfect pastor's daughter. I post about faith and family values and what it looks like to grow up in ministry. I have 42,000 of you following me because you think I have it figured out, because you think my family is the example. Her voice broke. But we're not. My mom had an affair with our youth pastor. She's pregnant with his baby, and She stopped, wiped her eyes. I didn't know. I thought we were perfect. I thought my parents' marriage was the model. I built my entire brand on that lie. She scrolled through old posts on her phone, showed them to the camera, family photos, church photos, posts about her parents' love story. This one is from 6 months ago. My parents are relationship goals. That was a lie. This one from 3 months ago. Watching my parents lead worship together is my favorite thing. That was a lie. This one from last month. Can't wait to have a marriage like my parents someday. That was the biggest lie of all. She set the phone down, looked at the camera. If you followed me for the perfect family aesthetic, unfollow now, because that was fake, all of it. I didn't know it was fake, but it was. My mom was having an affair while I posted about our perfect family values. My dad was trying to hold everything together while I used him as Instagram content. Tears streaming now. I'm sorry I sold you a lie. I'm sorry I made it look like faith means perfect families and no problems and everything tied up in neat little bows. Real faith is... She stopped, breathed. Real faith is what my dad did. He found out about the affair. He could have hidden it, could have kept it quiet to protect our reputation, protect my Instagram account, protect his ministry, but he didn't. He reported it. He chose truth over comfort. He chose integrity over image. And that, her voice broke completely. That's what I should have been posting about all along. Not perfection, truth. She wiped her face with her sleeve. I'm going to keep posting, but it's going to be different. It's going to be real. It's going to be messy, because that's what faith actually looks like. Not perfect families, not Instagram-worthy moments, just people choosing truth even when it costs everything. She looked at the camera for a long moment. If you want to unfollow, I understand. I sold you something I don't have anymore. But if you stay, thank you for being okay with the real me instead of the filtered version. The video ended. I sat there staring at my phone. Within an hour, the video had 10,000 views. Within 3 hours, 50,000. By the next morning, 2 million. The comments flooded in, not angry, not disappointed, supportive. This is the most real thing I've ever seen from a Christian influencer. Thank you for being honest. This is what we need more of. I grew up in church and I always felt like I had to be perfect. Seeing you be real about your family's mess, that helps more than you know. Your dad is a hero, not for having a perfect marriage, for choosing integrity. Sarah's follower count started climbing. 42,000 became 50,000, 60,000. By the end of the week, 80,000. People wanted truth more than they wanted perfection. She called me Wednesday night. Dad, did you see it? I saw it. Are you mad? Mad. Sarah, I'm proud of you. Really? Really. You chose authenticity over image. That takes more courage than pretending everything's fine. I learned it from you. Her voice was soft. You chose truth when it would have been easier to lie. So I did too. I couldn't speak, just sat there holding the phone, tears running down my face. Dad? I'm here. I'm proud of you, sweetheart. So proud. We talked for an hour, really talked. For the first time in 3 weeks. She told me about therapy, about processing, about realizing her whole identity had been built on performance. I'm figuring out who I am when I'm not performing perfect faith, she said. It's hard, but it's real. That's all you can be. Real. Yeah. Pause. Dad, Mom called me yesterday. My stomach tightened. What did she say? She wanted to explain, to justify what she did. She said you pushed her to it, that you were never home, that Marcus made her feel special. What did you tell her? I told her... Sarah's voice got stronger. I told her that's not how marriage works. That's not how faith works. That when you make a commitment, you don't break it just because it gets hard. I told her I'm not ready to talk to her yet. Maybe someday, but not now. That's fair. Is it okay if I'm angry at her? It's more than okay. You get to feel what you feel. She hurt you too. Yeah. Quiet. She did. 4 weeks later, I got a call from the hospital. Rebecca was there. Miscarriage. 16 weeks pregnant. Natural causes. Medical complications. Miriam called me. David, I know you don't owe her anything, but she's asking for you. She's not doing well. Marcus won't answer her calls. She's alone. I almost didn't go. Almost said no. Almost let her sit with the consequences of 14 months of choices. But I'm a pastor, for better or worse, and pastoral instinct runs deep. I drove to the hospital, walked into her room. She looked small, broken, not the confident church secretary, not the charismatic worship coordinator, just a woman who'd lost everything. David, her voice was a whisper. You came. I came. I lost the baby. Tears streaming. I was 16 weeks and complications. They said it was natural causes, nothing I did wrong, just it happened. I sat in the chair beside her bed, didn't touch her, didn't comfort her, just sat. Marcus won't answer my calls, she said. I've called 40 times, texted 100. He won't. She stopped, looked at me. He left town. Did you know that? I heard. He said he loved me. He said we'd be together. He said this baby was a gift from God. And now, she laughed, harsh, broken. Now he won't even answer. Because it was never about love. It was about the thrill, about feeling special. And now that it's complicated, now that there are consequences, she stopped, cried harder. I lost the baby. I lost you. I lost my job. Her voice broke completely. I lost everything, and he won't even answer my calls. I sat there, watching her fall apart, feeling nothing. Not satisfaction, not revenge, just tired. David, how do I come back from this? I looked at her. This woman I'd loved for 20 years. This woman who destroyed our marriage for 14 months of feeling special. This woman who'd used prayer language to justify adultery and called it spiritual connection. I spent 12 years teaching people how to forgive, I said quietly. I never imagined I'd have to learn what forgiveness doesn't mean. She looked at me, waiting. It means I release the bitterness, I continued. But I don't pretend this didn't happen. It means I can wish you well without reconciling with you. It means I hope you get help, real help, not from me, not from Marcus, from someone who will tell you the truth you don't want to hear. David, grace with truth, Rebecca. That's what you need. Not cheap grace that excuses what you did. Not condemnation that crushes you. Truth that holds you accountable, and grace that gives you space to heal. I don't know how to heal from this. Neither do I, but we'll both have to figure it out. Separately, she cried. I sat there. After a while, I stood up. I'm sorry about the baby, I said. I'm sorry you're going through this, but Rebecca, you need help, professional help, therapy, not pastoral counseling, real therapy that addresses why you do this. Why I do this? Your mother told me, about 10 years ago, about the worship leader at your old church, about the pattern. Her face went white. This isn't the first time, I said, and unless you get real help, it won't be the last. You need to understand why you need constant validation, why you sabotage good things to feel special, why you're willing to destroy everything for a feeling. I walked to the door, stopped, looked back. I hope you heal, Rebecca. I genuinely do, but I can't be part of that process. You understand? She nodded, still crying. I left, walked out of the hospital into bright November sunshine, got in my car, drove back to the apartment, and felt lighter, not happy, not healed, but lighter. Like I'd finally put down something I'd been carrying for too long. 6 months later. Spring came to Franklin, Tennessee, dogwoods blooming, warm breeze. Easter approaching. Grace Community Fellowship had changed. 200 members left after the scandal. Couldn't handle the messiness. Wanted a church without public failure. But 1,000 stayed. And somehow that 1,000 was stronger than the 1,200 had been. Smaller, more honest, more real. I wasn't associate pastor anymore. Couldn't be. Not with my marriage in shambles. But Charles asked me to stay on, to lead a small group, to counsel carefully with oversight, to teach occasionally. You showed us what integrity looks like, he'd said. We need that, even if it's uncomfortable. So I stayed. Wednesday night, small group. 8 people gathered in my new office, smaller office, quieter corner of the building. We met weekly, talked about faith and failure and what it means to rebuild after everything falls apart. I was setting up chairs when I realized these were the folding chairs from my garage, the ones I'd grabbed that October afternoon, the ones that had been stacked against the wall, hiding the storage bin, hiding the evidence. I carried them into the room, set them in a circle. 8 chairs, not 1,200, 8. People started arriving. Karen, whose husband left her last year. Miguel, recovering addict. Lisa, single mom. James, struggling with depression. Amy, deconstructing from toxic church. Robert, yes, Elder Robert, who decided he needed community more than he needed position. Tyler and Sarah. Sarah and Tyler had gotten married 2 weeks ago. Small ceremony, 50 people. I officiated. Rebecca wasn't there. She'd moved to Memphis, was in therapy, sent a card, but didn't come. Nathan was best man. It was simple, real, beautiful. Tyler had never wavered. Through the scandal, through Sarah's Instagram video, through everything, he'd stayed. I'm not marrying your family, he'd told her. I'm marrying you. They sat across from me now, Sarah's hand in Tyler's. She caught my eye, smiled, a real smile. Someone asked about the chairs. Pastor David, where'd these come from? I looked down at the folding chairs, metal, cold when I'd first carried them, now warmed by bodies, by presence, by people choosing to be real together. Oh, these chairs, I said slowly, were in my garage 6 months ago. I was getting them for a family dinner, and behind them was a storage bin, and in that storage bin was evidence that my wife had been having an affair for 14 months. The group was silent. They knew the story, most of it anyway, but they didn't know about the chairs. I've walked past these chairs 1,000 times, I continued, used them for church events, for family gatherings, for everything, but I never really saw them. Never noticed what was hidden behind them. I touched the back of one chair. These chairs witnessed the moment everything changed for me. The moment I finally looked closely enough to see the truth. Tyler spoke up. And now they're here. Holding people who choose authenticity over image. People who've been through hell and are willing to say so. People who know that faith isn't about perfection. It's about truth. I looked around the circle. The chairs in the garage, the chairs in the sanctuary, we fill them with people but forget to ask who's really there. I paused. Now I ask, and these chairs? They hold people who chose truth. Sarah was crying, happy tears. She squeezed Tyler's hand. I'm proud to be your daughter, Dad, she said. Not because we're perfect, not because our family survived intact, but because you chose truth when it would have been easier to lie. because you showed me that integrity costs everything, but it's the only thing worth having. I had to look away, had to breathe. The small group continued. We talked about betrayal, about forgiveness, about what it means to rebuild when everything falls apart, about the difference between cheap grace that enables and true grace that transforms. At the end, we prayed. Simple prayers, honest prayers, no performance, no perfect spiritual language. Just people talking to God about real things. As everyone left, Sarah and Tyler lingered. "Dad," Sarah said, "thank you." "For what?" "For showing me what real faith looks like. For teaching me that we don't have to pretend. That messy and honest beats perfect and fake every single time." She hugged me. Tyler shook my hand. They left. I sat alone in the circle of folding chairs. 8 chairs. Emptied now. Quiet. I thought about that October afternoon, about finding the pregnancy test, about the storage bin, about 14 months of evidence spread on my garage floor. I thought about Rebecca in Memphis, getting help, facing her patterns. I hoped she was healing. I genuinely did. But that wasn't my journey anymore. I thought about Marcus, gone, somewhere. I hoped he'd gotten help too. Hoped he'd never hurt another family. I thought about Sarah's Instagram video. 2 million views, 80,000 followers who wanted real faith instead of performed perfection. I thought about Nathan, back at college, healthy, free from the secret he'd carried for 8 weeks. I thought about this small group, 8 people, broken, healing, real. I thought about the 1,000 people who'd stayed at Grace Fellowship, who'd chosen truth over comfort, who'd walked through scandal and come out stronger. I spent 12 years teaching people how to forgive. I never imagined I'd have to learn what forgiveness doesn't mean. It means I release the bitterness, but I don't pretend it didn't happen. It means I can heal without reconciling with people who aren't repentant. That's the lesson. Integrity isn't convenient, but it's the only foundation that holds. I stood up, started folding the chairs, these chairs that had witnessed my discovery, these chairs that now witnessed healing. I stacked them carefully, put them in the corner, ready for next Wednesday, ready for the next group of broken people choosing to be honest together. David and Sarah redefined what family means, not who you're born to, but who shows up when truth costs everything. If you've built your own chosen family through hard seasons, the people who stayed when it got messy, tell me about them in the comments. I want to hear your stories. And if this story moved you, subscribe. I tell stories about faith, betrayal, and the courage to choose integrity over image. Stories about people who do the right thing when it would be easier to lie. I'll see you in the next one.